also like to announce tonight that unfortunately, we have made the decision to cancel this year's 4th of July parade. This was a decision that was not made lightly and not one that any of us here are happy about, but unfortunately, under the circumstances, we believe that it was the right decision. All of the parade participants have been notified, and so tonight we are letting the public know that unfortunately, this year's Middletown Township 4th of July parade will not go forward. Next on the agenda, we have some special items. The first is the swearing in of new police officers. And tonight we have Officer Alexa Morris and Officer Matthew Ballant. Chief?
Thank you, Mr. Kizak, and fellow board members, those who are watching virtually. I'm going to read some impressive bios of each officer. I can't yell it out because I'm talking on a microphone and people at home will be going deaf if I yell into the video. So if everybody wants to move up a little closer to hear the biographies, they're very impressive. So these are our two newest officers. What a time to come on to a police department, huh? Quite a challenge between everything that the world is going through right now, COVID all the way through the unrest that's been happening recently, but we are very happy to have them. They're both very qualified, and I'm going to start by reading their impressive biographies. First is Alexa Moores to the left. Alexa resides in Yardley Borough. She attended Pennsbury High School and graduated in 2014. While attending Pennsbury, she was named Player of the Year for soccer. After graduating from Pennsbury, she continued her athletic career at Bucks County Community College, where she earned second-team All-Region in soccer. She graduated Bucks with an associate's degree in health and physical education, then transferred to East Stroudsburg University, where she joined the soccer team and helped them to win the state championship 2 years in a row. Alexa graduated East Stroudsburg with a bachelor's degree in health and physical education, making the dean's list and athletic director's honor roll each semester. After graduating with her bachelor's degree, Alexa attended the Temple University Police Academy. She graduated from this past March. In her spare time, Alexa enjoys fishing with her dad, Sergeant Joe Moores from Bristol Borough, longtime Bristol Borough officer who is here tonight with us. She likes bike riding and CrossFit. We are very happy to have Officer Alexa Moores. And also now Officer Matthew Ballant. Matt is 24 years old, currently resides in Royersford, Montgomery County. Matt went to Spring Ford High School, graduated in 2014. After graduating high school, Matt attended Cabrini University and graduated in 2018 with a bachelor's degree in criminology. While obtaining his degree, Matt was recognized for academic excellence by being inducted in both the National Criminal Justice Honor Society and the International Sociological Honor Society. Matt continued his education at Cabrini and obtained his master's degree in criminal justice in May of 2019. After graduating from Cabrini, he attended the Temple University Police Academy, graduating this past March. Matt and Alexa were in the same class, if you haven't figured that out. While at the police academy, Matt held a class leadership role as a corporal, was recognized with the Class Physical Fitness Award. Prior to joining our police department, Matt worked hospitality and security at Mainline Health. Matt spends much of his free time volunteering as an active member of the Black Rock Volunteer Fire Company. I don't know where he finds the time, makes me feel this big. But Matt is a very, very busy person, and we are very happy to have him and Alexa join our police department. So with that, I'm going to ask our board chairman, Mr. Mike Kizak, to come down and swear both officers in.
Okay, I will now administer the oath of office. So please repeat after me. Raise your right hand. Great. I state your name. Do solemnly swear that I will support, obey, and defend the Constitution of the United States, the laws of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, and the ordinances of Middletown Township with duty, honor, and fidelity as a Middletown Township police officer. Congratulations. Now, glad to have you. Okay, next on the agenda, we have the presentation of scholarship awards by the Middletown Community Foundation. And for that, we have from the Middletown Community Foundation, Paula Kearns.
Thank you. Once again, we thank the board for allowing us to do these presentations at your meetings. We've been giving these awards out since 2002, and we've given out 172 awards, scholarships that total $176,000 in that time. Our scholarships are not grade-based. They're based on community service performed by the students throughout their high school career. So we judge the applications by an essay that each of the applicants writes. And we have a board, we have a group that grades them. It's a blind grading system. And we're happy to announce that this year we have two winners. And they're actually winning scholarships that were endowed by County Commissioner Diane Marseglia in honor of her daughter Becky, and Tom Tosti in honor of his father Richard Tosti. So I'd like to call up Alex Dampman. Alex is winning the Becky Marseglia Scholarship. Alex is a senior at Neshaminy, and he will be attending Penn State in the fall and majoring in nursing. Happy to hear that. So congratulations. Our other scholarship winner is Trevor Schoeneman, and Trevor couldn't be here with us tonight, so representing Trevor are his parents. Trevor is also going to Penn State, which is my alma mater too, and he will major in mechanical engineering, and he is winning the Richard L. Tosti Scholarship. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay, congratulations to both of our scholarship recipients. Next on the agenda, we have recognition of the Middletown Environmental Advisory Council student member, Jack Brookshaw. And I am going to read a letter that was written by Stephen Donahue on behalf of the Environmental Advisory Council. Unfortunately, the honoree, Mr. Brookshaw, could not be here this evening. On behalf of the Middletown Township Environmental Advisory Council, I respectfully request that the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors publicly recognize Jack Brookshaw for his outstanding contribution to our community and the environment. Jack Brookshaw has been a student member of the EAC for over 3 years. Jack is graduating from Neshaminy High School in 2020 and will be attending George Washington University in the fall. Middletown's loss is the world's gain. Typically, a student member acts as a liaison as their time permits. Jack has dutifully attended almost every one of our monthly meetings. There are not many high school students that would take the time out of their busy study and social lives to network with a bunch of people over twice their age and engage with them, actively trying to better their community and environment. Not only that, but Jack has been a tremendous asset to our EAC as a leader and recruiter of his fellow students to help Middletown Township with our Earth Day and spring and fall tree plantings. In over 20 years on the EAC, I have only known one other student EAC member that came close to showing the leadership and maturity Jack has demonstrated. Just as importantly, Jack has been a pleasure to work with for his quick wit and sense of humor. Jack will be sorely missed. Please consider acknowledging the contribution Jack has made at your next opportunity. And so we're pleased to do that here tonight to recognize and acknowledge Jack Brookshaw for his incredible contributions to the Middletown Environmental Advisory Council. Thank you, Jack, and good luck at college. Okay, next on the agenda are the consent agenda items. Item A, consideration of authorizing payment due June 15th, 2020 bill list in the amount of $1,256,711.74. Item B, consideration of approving the May 18th, 2020 minutes of the public meeting of the Middletown Township Board of Supervisors. Item D, consideration of approving change order number 1, 2019 handicap ramp program reflecting a balancing in contract work and the completion of the project under budget by Ramos and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $19,713. And item E, consideration of authorizing payment certificate number 4 to Ramos and Associates, Inc. in the amount of $3,509.93 for the 2019 handicap ramp program. Is there a motion on the consent agenda items?
I make a motion to accept the consent agenda items as read.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? We'll pause just momentarily to allow the public time to comment. Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda items pass 5-0. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing award of the 2020 road program bid to General Asphalt Paving Company of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in the amount of $926,364.75. Do we have Mr. Innes? Yes, Mr. Innes.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The background of the 2020 Middletown Road programs was the advertisements were published on April 20th and 24th. Bid specifications were posted and made available on penbid.net. Bidders were given until 11 a.m. on May 7th, 2020 to respond. There were 4 bids received, and a low bidder for the base bid and the 2 bid alternates was General Asphalt Paving Company of Philadelphia. The base bid is milling and paving of approximately 3.8 miles of township roads. And I will share my screen to show those roads. So the first 2 sections for the program are Hampton Bridge and Heaton Mills. Then Sturbridge Roads, Swift Road and Silver Lake Road, and Township Line Road north of 295 to almost the railroad crossing. The first bid alternate are the parks, some paving of parking areas at 700 Hughville Avenue. Firefighter Park will be paving and some ADA sidewalks connecting some of the features. And Harris Park will also have a paved driveway. Bid alternate number 2 is the Sycamore Ridge drainage improvements of a collapsed pipe that is in the back in the drainage basin along Mill Creek on the properties to the rear of Dawn Road. The bid tabulations for the base bid and alternates 1 and 2 are as follows. General Asphalt Paving Company, $926,364.75. James D. Morrissey, $953,925.50. Earl Asphalt Company, $1,026,168. And Ben Cardino Excavation, $1,172,813.13. General Asphalt Paving Company of Philadelphia meets all the requirements under the Responsible Contractor Ordinance. The project will be funded through $400,000 through the PennDOT Liquid Fuels and the balance available from the Public Works Capital Road Fund. If the board concurs, the motion would be, I move to award a contract to General Asphalt Paving Company of Philadelphia in the amount of $926,364.75 for the 2020 road paving program.
Thank you, Ms. Rennis. Is there a motion on the 2020 road program bid? Yes, Ms. Strauss.
I move to award a contract to General Asphalt Paving Company of Philadelphia in the amount of $926,364.75 for the 2020 road paving program.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 5-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rennis. Next on the agenda, consideration of authorizing approval of ordinance number 20-03, authorizing an early retirement incentive program for the non-uniformed pension plan, duly advertised in the Bucks County Courier-Times on June 8th, 2020. Proof of publication has been received. Ms. Dealy-Cools, do you want to report on this?
Sure. At your last meeting, you authorized the staff to prepare and advertise an early retirement incentive program as part of an overall effort to reduce expenditures in the general fund. It has been advertised and is ready for your consideration. It will apply to 16 employees. Any employee must be age 60 or older with 10 years of experience. And in terms of the financial impact, we will know only when we launch this and we have participants decide that they want to opt into the early retirement incentive program. The game plan is that we would not replace these folks until the pandemic crisis has passed us. And so at this point, it's ready for the board's consideration unless you have some questions.
Do any board members have questions for Ms. Dealy-Cools at this time? Seeing none, does anybody want to make a motion?
I move to approve ordinance number 20-03, establishing an early retirement incentive program for the non-uniform pension plan.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Is there a second?
I'll move to second.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Seeing none, are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms. Dealy-Cools. Next on the agenda, consideration of approving a lease agreement between Premier Media LLC and Middletown Township. Mr. Esposito.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Kivek. So the township is the owner of a very small parcel of land. It's located at the northeast corner of South Flowers Mill Road and Business Route 1, which is right in front of the Fred Beans Honda car dealership and across from the Bryans Harley Davidson. So the township was approached from Premier Media to rent the land and install a 300 square foot one-sided monument display digital billboard. Under the township's zoning ordinance, this is one of the 3 locations within the township that a monument digital billboard is permitted. I have negotiated a lease with the attorney for Premier Media, and I've attached it for the board's review. The agreed upon design for the billboard is also attached to the lease for the board's review. The main terms of the lease are as follows. There's going to be a development term, which the Premier Media would pay $1,000 per month until they complete the construction of the billboard, or 24 months from the date of execution, whichever is earlier to occur. During the principal term, which will be 25 years, there's lease payments for the first 5 years of $19,000 per year, and then it'll gradually increase by 12.5% every 5 years after that. A couple miscellaneous provisions that you might might be aware of, there is a landscaping maintenance agreement that the Premier Media would have to enter into, and they would put money up in escrow with the township, so the township could ensure that the landscaping is kept up throughout the years. And Premier must also maintain proper insurance, name the township as an additional insured. And then there's other typical lease provisions with the township. If anybody has any questions, I'm more certainly willing to answer them.
Do any board members have any questions for Mr. Esposito at this time?
Yeah, I have a question. With this sign, you had mentioned we get revenue back with this from the township, correct? Something we don't get off of the other side.
No.
Okay.
No, the other sign does have the maintenance, landscaping maintenance agreement, but we do not rent. We do not receive any revenue from that.
And then if we didn't allow this, I remember when we were in the meeting with them, they were just going to go across the street to Brian's Harley Davidson and try to work an agreement out with them.
Yes, the other corner of that intersection within Brian Harley Davidson's lot is the other permitted section within the township. And they did say that they would approach Brian's and try to rent from them if the township was not.
And then we would have just lost anything that we have with this lease agreement that you have.
Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Esposito.
Any other board members have questions for Mr. Esposito? Seeing none, I will make a motion to authorize Middletown Township to enter into the proposed lease agreement with Premier Media LLC for the property owned by Middletown Township located at the northeast corner of South Flowers Mill Road and Business Route 1 for the purpose of a monument display digital billboard. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? And Ms. Corporal has left the Zoom meeting.
I can hear you.
Okay, as long as you can hear us. There's been a motion and a second. No board questions, no public questions. At this point, we'll take it to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Thank you. It passes by a vote of 3-2.
Oh my God. No, they can hear me.
We can hear you, Dawn.
Okay, sorry. I can't see you anymore, but I can hear you.
Okay, we can hear you too. Next on the agenda is consideration of authorizing approval of resolution number 20-16R, Inter-Municipal Transfer of Eating Place Liquor License and Conditional Licensing Agreement for Giant, North Flowers Mill Road. Mr. Esposito again.
Okay. As the board might recall, Giant Food Stores LLC, which is the owner of the Giant located within Flowers Mill Shopping Center, applied for an intermunicipal liquor license transfer in order to permit a liquor license to be transferred from Warrington Township into Middletown Township, so the Giant could then sell beer and wine from the grocery store. At its February 17th, 2020 meeting, the board held a hearing about the liquor license transfer hearing. It was denied at that hearing. Giant did subsequently appeal the board's denial to the Court of Common Pleas, and I've been working with the attorney for Giant since that date. Giant has proposed a settlement to the township of the appeal by agreeing to enter into a conditional licensing agreement with the township. I have attached a copy of the licensing agreement for the board's review. The agreement would allow the transfer of a liquor license into the township. It would have the township execute an approval resolution, which the Giant would need to send to the Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. But it also places certain restrictions and conditions upon Giant in its liquor license operation. Some of the conditions are that it would limit the on-premises consumption of beer and wine in its indoor seating area to a limit of 30 seats. there would be a maximum of 12-ounce beers, a consumption of 12-ounce beers per day per customer, and a limit of consumption of 1 8.5-ounce wine bottle per patron per day. There would be no hard liquor consumption on the premises, and there would be a 100% carding policy for the purchase of all alcoholic beverages. And then there's a few other things. I'm presenting this to the board to try to settle this appeal. I'm willing to answer any questions that the board may have. I do want to present to the board, if they recall at the hearing, their owner of the Golden Beer Distributor was at the hearing in February and did oppose the application. He has submitted an email to let the board know he's still opposed to it. I'm going to read his email out to the board so everyone can hear it. Hello, my name is Shimon Popley. I'm the owner of Golden Beer Distributor Incorporated, located in the Flowers Mill Shopping Center. I object to the Giant being able to sell beer as it will hurt my business very much. I'm going to file a motion to intervene in the court action filed by Giant when they appealed your decision. Please do not approve the resolution tonight. Thank you. I also want to let them know I did receive a phone call from the attorney for Golden Beer Distributor, and she has advised me that she would request a continuance of the board's approval of the settlement until they have an opportunity to intervene in the appeal as well. My suggestion is the appeal was filed three months ago. There was a significant amount of time for them to intervene in this appeal before. There is still time for them to try and intervene, as this settlement still needs to be approved by the judge if it is approved by the board tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Are there any questions from any of the board members for us, Mr. Esposito, on this issue?
Yeah, I have a few questions. Under this settlement agreement, I guess it's the third bullet point down. It says, Giant shall not sell hard liquor for on-premise consumptions. Now, my understanding of these licenses, they can't sell hard liquor anyway. It's a wine and beer is what it is. So, I mean, when I think of hard liquor, I think of like Jack Daniels and things like that. Is that what that refers to, or is that the wine?
So actually, no, wine is permitted to be consumed. Hard liquor is no vodka.
So they would not even be able to sell it, let alone
and they're not
consume it.
permitted to sell it either. That's not the type of liquor.
Do we have to have that in there as? Okay.
Yes.
Now,
no,
you also had
liquor
mentioned
license
that
itself doesn't permit
they
them
have a
to
maximum
sell
of two 12-ounce under bullet point 2, 2 12-ounce beers per day, and then the consumption of 8.5 ounces. Is there also a limit on how much they can sell outside of that, or is that just unlimited wine or beer that they want to be able to sell?
There is a limit. I don't recall off the top of my head, but there is a limit that they can sell to each
There's a
patron
delay
that
and
comes
everything.
in. I believe it is 2 6-packs of beer, but I don't recall the amount of wine specifically. But if you do recall, there is a limit. I just don't recall off the top of my head. But that's sorry. That is specific in their liquor license of what it's limited upon.
Is what's going on in the airway what we hear in real time, or is it the delayed that we're hearing read back to us?
I have been told that what is going out over the airwaves is not what we're hearing.
Okay.
There's a delay on our end. Apologies. We're hearing everything Jim says twice.
All right. And then I guess the last question I got is under bullet point number 5, where they shall employ a full-time manager of the restaurant who will become PLCB approved. But that is not a PLCB employee. That would be an employee of the Giant. Is that correct? All right.
that would be an employee of the Giant, yes. And one other thing I want to say about this agreement, so this is a written formal agreement that the township would be entering into. So we would actually be able to enforce this written agreement if they were to violate any of these conditions.
Do any other board members have
So
questions
that
for
would not
Mr.
have been the
Esposito?
case if we had approved the resolution earlier, but this is a formal written agreement that we can enforce.
So I just had a question. So if say in the future they went and got a license without that they didn't need our approval, we wouldn't have control over that. Is that correct?
It depends on where they purchased the liquor license from. So if they were able to find a liquor license that was located within Middletown Township, they would not need to come for any approvals in front of the township. If they were only able to find a liquor license located outside of the township, as this one is coming in from Warrington Township, they would have to come in front of the supervisors for approval of the transfer. But they could just wait and for one in Middletown Township to open up and purchase, and the board would have no say.
Okay. Does anybody have any other questions for Mr. Esposito at this time? Okay, I will make a motion for Middletown Township to settle the inter-municipal liquor license transfer appeal of Giant Food Stores LLC, enter into the proposed conditional licensing agreement, and permit the transfer of Pennsylvania liquor license number E-4991 from Warrington Township to Giant Food Stores LLC in Middletown Township located at 168 North Flowers Mill Road, Langhorne, Pennsylvania. Is there a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions at this time? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
No.
Passes 3-2. Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Next on the agenda is Building and Zoning Department software. Item A being consideration of authorizing execution of a termination agreement and mutual release with Tyler Technologies. And item B, consideration of authorizing execution of a service agreement with Tracer, that's TRAISR, by McMahon to add permit and inspection modules. Mr. Esposito.
Actually, it's me. That's okay.
Really cool.
Yeah. So you have in front of you, and because I'm grabbing the agreement from Mr. Esposito since it relates to the overall topic.
Got it. Streamlined.
So you have two items for your consideration, as you just noted. We have been working toward transitioning from a Tyler Technologies product to Tracer. And so this evening, I'd like to ask the board's authorization to terminate our agreement with Tyler Technologies. Tracer is a product that we have launched recently with our MTGo Citizen Request Portal, and it is also being utilized in our public works departments for work order management. A lot of great recommendations from users of their building and permitting software and mapping software. They come highly recommended for this component. And we'd like to move forward to try to streamline things. This move to Tracer and the Citizen Portal and the work order system is all an effort to provide a higher level of customer service to our residents remotely and otherwise, right? So Tracer will, when it's all said and done, we will be able to bring it right within the same cost of what we budgeted. The Tyler product was a 5-year lease. We are terminating, getting out of the lease without any hiccups. And so, you know, some of the things that we will be able to do now is both the, having the Public Works Department and the Building and Zoning Department on the same software and having the complaints come in, is we will have a true online property file. And so we will be moving away from paper to a secretary in the Public Works Department will be able to take in a complaint on a particular property, and she will be able to see everything that's going on with that particular property. If there is a subdivision and land development underway, if there are any other items in the property file. And the same would be true if one of you as elected officials called me to say, hey, what's going on with such and such a property? I'd be able to very quickly go on and give you an update by just looking at the online property file. And it's connected to mapping. And so this is going to be something that's really going to bring things to a much higher level for us in terms of providing service to our residents. And I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
So let's, if we can, let's take item A first, which concerns the termination agreement with Tyler Technologies. Are there any questions for Ms. Teoli-Cools? Then I will make a motion to authorize execution of a termination agreement and mutual release with Tyler Technologies.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Okay, that passes 5-0. And then item B, which concerns the service agreement with Tracer. Are there any questions for Ms. Teoli-Cools on the Tracer product? Seeing none, I'll move to authorize execution of a service agreement with Tracer to add permanent and inspection modules. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Passes 5-0. Thanks, Ms. Teoli-Cools. Next on the agenda is an update on the Middletown Township Economic Reopening Task Force. And for that, we'll hear from Vice Chairperson Amy Strauss.
Thank you, Mr. Kizak. I wanted to give everyone an update on the Economic Reopening Task Force that has been convened and has been working really hard over the last few weeks. Since Bucks County has now been moved to the yellow phase, and we hope in just a few short weeks is going to be moving to the green phase, we're seeing a lot of questions from residents and especially from small business owners, understandably. How can I reopen and start to regain my business? How can I keep myself and my employees, my customers safe in the process? What really does yellow and green mean? And so there's a lot of noise coming from the federal, state, and county levels of government, but as the level of government closest to the residents, we wanted to be a resource for our small businesses so that they can open quickly and with confidence that they're keeping their employees and customers safe. So we put together a really all-star task force representing many different sectors of small businesses in the township, plus our largest employers, representative from labor, tourism industry, local elected officials, and our township administration. So I think it's worth thanking those people and recognizing the time and energy that they've given to this. Members of the task force were Jimmy Bayer, who's an organizer and field representative from IBEW Local 269, Paul Bensavengo, who's the president and chief operating officer from Visit Bucks County, Rachel Boline, who's the owner of Mamselle Hair Salon, who will hopefully be reopening here in a couple of weeks, Jason Green, who's the owner of Jay's Steak and Hoagie Joint, Gwen Karpf, the mall manager for Oxford Valley Mall, Robin Kemmerer and Missy Kitzmiller, who are owner and agent at Robin Kemmerer Associates, Mike Kizak, our chairperson, Jim Merrill, who's the president and CEO for Inspire Federal Credit Union, myself, Stephanie Teoli-Cools, our township manager, Kathy Valeriano, who's the park president of Sesame Place and really was the driving force behind us getting this group together. And I really want to thank her for her energy and enthusiasm. And Nick Valla, our management analyst at Middletown Township, who's done a lot of the legwork based on the recommendations that the task force has come up with. So what we've assembled is a pretty significant package of resources under the banner of Middletown Safe. So first of all, you can find a consolidated set of guidelines for reopening that's largely leveraging the Bucks County Reopening Task Force that my fellow board member Tom Tosti sits on. And if you go to, it's a bit of a long URL, but it's also prominently linked right at the front page of our website, www.middletownbucks.org/community/COVID-19/business-safe. Again, also prominently linked from middletownbucks.org. You're going to find checklists and all sorts of resources to follow by industry. We're also really excited to announce, and Stephanie has them to show to you tonight, that we have printed and produced free sign packages for our small businesses. And so the Board of Supervisors has authorized a level of spending to make sure that small businesses that haven't been getting revenue over the last couple of months don't have this as an additional barrier. Signage has become really important as you're looking to open your business. So we have a full package of signs based around this Middletown Safe theme. So we have signs you can put in your window to encourage your shoppers to shop safely. We have floor decals, so round floor decals that you can put to show what 6 feet apart really looks like. And then we also have the signs Stephanie's showing that say open for business, that you can prominently display in front of your business so that everybody at Middletown knows that you have in fact reopened and we should start shopping with you again. And then so we have those printed up and ready. We can deliver those to you if you reach out and tell us which small business you represent, and we'll get you a package of these signs. We also have downloadable packages on the website if you want to print them yourself. Some say shop safe, play safe, style safe, and we can actually have them say whatever's relevant for your business. So if you've got an axe throwing business, we can have axe throw safe, which is probably a good idea no matter what. And then finally, as you'll see in our next agenda item, we've worked together as this task force to think really expansively about what zoning, permitting, or any other township regulations we can relax to ease that burden on businesses trying to reopen. So we're really excited to be taking steps in that direction as well. So hopefully you'll see, if you follow us on social media, 2 of our wonderful task force members, Robin Kemmerer and Missy Kitzmiller, have been going around to drop these sign packages off, and then they've been taking photos and videos with our small business owners. We're happy to then promote that those businesses have reopened safely through our social media. So if you want to be part of that as well, let us know, and we will get our semi-expert video team out to you as soon as possible. So if you have any questions about how to reopen safely or what the best guidelines are, definitely contact us through the township portal, or I don't think Nick would mind if you email him at nvalla, V-A-L-L-A, at middletownbucks.org. And he is great about getting you what you need or getting those signs changed to speak to your particular small business. So I know, thank you so much to Stephanie, Nick, and the whole team for supporting this initiative. As I've seen these signs going up as I drive around the township, it really makes me smile to think that some sense of normalcy is coming back to our community. And as I look around, no other township that I've seen has had such a coherent, visually impressive rollout of what economic reopening looks like, and a way to really get residents excited about shopping local. So thank you so much for all the work you've put in the midst of a real crisis and having a lot of other things on your plate. I really appreciate it. Happy to take any other questions about what the task force has been doing, or any other guidance or questions from residents if they have had time to call in at this point.
I'd like to make a comment, and I'd like to thank you, Ms. Strauss, and all the representatives that were on the committee that put this together. You actually said it right. We are out ahead of everybody else with this. I just read in the paper there's another township who just put one of these committees together, not just last week. And I mean, we're in yellow, we're in the yellow, right? Yeah, we're in the yellow phase now. So, I mean, we were ahead of things. The signs look great. But I do have one question. Now that we're in yellow, are you going to continue with the task force to prepare us to move into the green phase now, or has that all been part of this as you've been working with the committee to get us rolling? Because like I said, this looks great. I go around and I see the different establishments that are open. Some got tents up, some got parking spaces, some got, I mean, I see JB Dawson's right up here. They just got the little umbrellas up in the area. So we were out ahead of it, and I commend you for that. But yeah, is there a plan for when we go green?
I would say that the rollout to green has very much been part of the planning process all along. We watched what happened kind of in the western half of the state as they went from yellow to green pretty quickly, and we're optimistic that that will happen for us as well. So we knew that was coming. That's one of the reasons why we wanted to make sure we had a hair salon representative on the committee from the beginning, because salons and gyms and all those personal services businesses have not been open yet. So there's a lot of businesses that were allowed to open in yellow. There'll be a whole new wave of businesses that are now allowed to open in green. And we wanted to be sure we were getting their questions and needs taken care of from the beginning. We are going to slow the pace of the task force. And so we had been meeting weekly, which is a pretty big time commitment from a lot of busy people. I think what we'll do going forward is watch as this plan goes out, continue to take questions, and hopefully once we have the announcement that we are going to turn green, we're going to get the task force back together, make sure everything's set, see if we need to print more sign packages, if there's a bunch more businesses that need assistance, and we'll be set from there.
Thanks. Awesome work again. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Ms. Strauss. And thank you again to all the members of the community and the members of this task force. Next on the agenda, and certainly on the heels of Ms. Strauss's presentation, this is relevant, is consideration of authorizing approval of resolution number 20-17R, establishing guidelines for outdoor dining and outdoor sales of merchandise. Mr. Esposito.
Yeah, so this certainly does just follow what Ms. Strauss was talking about. The state, the county, and the township obviously wants to encourage outdoor dining and retail sales during the yellow and green phases. This resolution just establishes some guidelines and policies that were actually suggested by the Bucks County Planning Commission. The Planning Commission forwarded some guidance to us and also forwarded a sample resolution. I reviewed it. I actually made a couple changes because Middletown Township has some specific ordinances that we want to relax to also try to encourage it. So some of the zoning regulations have been relaxed, and that is in the resolution. Most of those have to do with just some parking regulations to allow some outdoor dining still in the sidewalks and parking lots. The restaurants and retail stores still do need to comply with the other regulations and laws, ADA and Pennsylvania Liquor Control Board. We also do encourage them to speak to any landlords to make sure that they are permitted to use those spaces under their leases as well. But the point of the resolution is mainly to encourage the outdoor dining and retail use during the yellow and green phases.
Thank you, Mr. Esposito. Any board members have questions for Mr. Esposito? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I make a motion to adopt the resolution establishing guidelines and policies for outdoor sales of merchandise and or outdoor dining for existing businesses in Middletown Township during the coronavirus pandemic.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Payne. There's been a motion and a second. Are there any board questions? Are there any questions from the public? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Carries 5-0. Thank you. Next on the agenda is public comment. And so this is public comment on non-agenda items. We will wait for a few moments to allow residents to provide their comments by email, phone, or text. We did get one public comment by email prior to the meeting, and I will read that now. This is from Jacob Gilbert, 1640 Brownsville Road, Langhorne. I would like to have the Board of Supervisors commit to an immediate freeze in the police services budget. The police services budget has increased over $1.8 million from 2017 and is approximately 50% of the total operating expenditures. The $432,000 increase to the budget in this fiscal year could have been better spent on so many other services and doesn't seem to be related to crime or other demographics. That says nothing about the increase in capital spending. Related, the history section incredibly leaves out any of the storied racist past of Levittown, and despite the continued use of a racist name for the high school's mascot, says nothing of the Native Americans who lived here before we forced them out. We living in the suburbs, a place where generational wealth was created for white people, have a responsibility to do better. Do not continue to pour money down the drain. The 2020 budget opens with the first service provided being 24-hour police protection. You should be rethinking the allocation of those resources and the way that you serve the township. And again, that's from Jacob Gilbert of Brownsville Road in Langhorne. I will just say, and I'll give my fellow board members an opportunity to respond to this as well. Certainly, it's timely and relevant to be having a conversation about policing. And every community needs to make their own decision about what makes the most sense for their community. Personally, and we've heard a lot of the term defund being used quite a bit. I am personally not in favor of defunding the police department in Middletown Township. That does not mean that it would not be appropriate to pause for some self-reflection, to look at our policies and procedures and the way we do things. And certainly that's always helpful and reasonable, and something that we strive to be doing all the time here in Middletown Township. But specifically on the issue of defunding, that's something that I would not support or be in favor of for Middletown Township. And I just want to, if I could, before the meeting, I just had township staff pull some information, and I just want to review a little bit of this for the residents of our township. The Middletown Township Police Department is an accredited agency, and we are one of only 110 in the Commonwealth out of over 1,000 police departments throughout the state. We're one of only 110 that are accredited, and being accredited requires our police department to meet some extremely rigorous and high standards, which are reviewed by a peer review panel, and they're re-reviewed every 3 years. Our officers are highly trained. We have an emphasis here in our township on continual training, so it's not a scenario where you're trained in the academy and then you go on about your job without revisiting that training. There's continual training, and that really is an emphasis here in this township. Annually, all of our officers, every single one, receives 24-hour use of force training, 8 hours of de-escalation of conflict training, 8 hours of racial and ethnic bias training, 8 hours of training on gender bias and response to domestic violence and sexual assault, 8 hours of training on bias toward lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender individuals, and 8 hours of community policing and problem-solving training. So that's every year. That's training that every officer in this police department goes through. And so while I certainly would be in favor of and would be supportive of having a dialogue to talk about the way policing is done, I want to just make it clear to the residents of our township that this is something that we already focus on, and we already strive to have a very highly trained, very sophisticated, and frankly, very rigorously monitored police department in this township. But with that, I'd like to give each of my other board members an opportunity to say something if they wish. Mr. Tosti?
Thank you, Mr. Kizak. Yeah, I just wanted to say I agree with you. I do not want to defund our police department. I am not in favor of defunding our police department. Some of the things you said there, as far as them being accredited, that's true. They're accredited, and some of that information that people are asking for now, as far as policies and procedures, are all part of the accreditation and open to the public if they wanted to see that. Our police department is out in front, and they're in our neighborhoods more than I see any other police department. They do more than the local ones in this area. You have Shop with the Cop during Christmas time. You have the Coffee with the Cop. They do that a couple times a year, and it actually has been interrupted because of COVID. Our police chief meets with community groups. He meets with faith leaders. He meets with the NAACP. He meets with them a couple times a year just to kind of talk to them and get the feel of what's going on in our community. Our police officers are in the mall. We have a police officer in the mall. We have 2 police officers in our school district. We have a police officer at the Sesame Place. So they're in the community, and I think what we're seeing across the country is other police forces that don't do what our police force do. They're not out there in the community and being part of the community. A lot of that has to do with them being part of our community because they live here in the community. They don't live in other areas of the county. They live right here in the surrounding areas, so they have a feel for what's going on and where they should be. So I do not support defunding it. I do think that implicit bias training could probably help. And I know they get the training online, but maybe if we do that, where they're sitting, and maybe all the staff here at Middletown take the implicit bias training to kind of let people see what other people's are feeling and what they're seeing. I took it like 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and it opens your eyes up to really the bias that is out there towards African Americans and others that are not white. So I would recommend that we do that, and then even go as far as offering it to the residents once our township employees do it. Let our township residents come in and let them have the training and let them see, because we need to get it out in the community. We are one community here in Middletown. We're all here. We're 40,000 some residents right here in Middletown, and we need to come together. A lot of this stuff you're seeing right now around the country, it's dividing and people are choosing sides. I think if we can come together as a community, we become a stronger Middletown. So I would support that, the implicit bias. I hope we can do that. And I support our police officers and I support our community, but I think it's important that we all remember that we're Middletown and we're all one. So thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Kizak.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. And I think you really hit the nail on the head and frankly said it better than I did or could have. And I think the most important points that you just made are, number one, that this idea of community policing is part of the culture of this department and has been. And that really starts from the top with our chief and his command staff. And the other is that all of these things we're hearing about, these use of force policies and training and racial bias training and policies, we already have those here in this township. And we've been doing this for a long time. And again, that does start from the top with our chief and his command staff, and it expands to the entire force. I would also, I think that's a great idea, Mr. Tosti, to do implicit bias training and to offer it up of the residents in this community. So I would support you in that initiative 100%. Ms. Payne, do you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, so to kind of piggyback off what Mr. Tosti said, I had spoken with some residents who had reached out concerned about some of the things that have already been discussed, but more so about the community and making sure that we all feel that we are valued just as much as everybody else is. And what they want to try and do is, obviously racism is a problem across this country, and to turn a blind eye to it in any county or township and pretend it doesn't exist, well, we're just fooling ourselves, right? So a couple months ago, or earlier this year, I know that the Peace Center had an event actually at the township where they talked about racism, and we actually had some incidents, I believe it was 2017, where there was some graffiti done on some of the schools. So kind of my thought was, with working with these other residents to try and bring, maybe the Peace Center in, NAACP, and any other groups that would be interested in having a conversation about how we can better understand each other and how we can kind of, learn from one another and help kind of bring the issues up that we're seeing in the community and put a face to it. I think part of the problem is that sometimes you don't think these things are happening because you don't see them, or you would never do that. So why would somebody else? But hearing the stories from other residents in the community that have had derogatory things said about them, or have felt like they don't really belong here, to try and open that dialogue and have that conversation. And maybe we could even do that at the same time as the bias training and bring, obviously the chief has already done some of this. I know he was there in 2017 at the school. So I think, just opening the dialogue to just have a conversation. I think maybe a couple months ago when they had it at the township with the Peace Center, and maybe it wasn't such a hot topic in a sense, but now I think a lot of people are seeing it play out on a larger scale. We could probably get more people, obviously, to participate and be open-minded about it than maybe a couple months ago when, people didn't see it for themselves. So I'm, hoping that we could all work together and try and do something to have some sort of conversation, maybe after the protests, or where do we go from here now, something like that. And work with, obviously, the police officers and different faith groups, or anybody that really wants to be involved. If the school district wants to be involved as well, since they see some of that stuff at the schools, that would be great too.
Yeah, I think that's also a fantastic idea. So I would support you in that initiative as well, Ms. Payne. Thank you very much. Ms. Strauss, do you have anything?
Sure, thank you. I really appreciate you all opening this conversation. I think we would be remiss if we didn't address it at this meeting, given the climate nationally. I was honored to be asked to speak on a panel for a group of middle schoolers, a Zoom panel, of course, side by side with our police chief a week ago. And I was proud to say at that panel to middle schoolers, and I'll say it again now, that it is okay, and I believe, just to proudly say that you believe that Black Lives Matter, and also that you support our police department and that you support the way our police chief has been managing things here in Middletown. Those ideas don't have to be in opposition to one another. And if we could turn down the volume on the conversation and focus on the fact that you can believe those two things at once, and I do, I think we'll get a lot farther. And I also, at the panel, complimented our police chief for always running a community-based policing effort that puts our police officers out there with the kids, playing basketball with them, all the things Tom cited. You know, people know Missy by name, and those kids feel like they can approach her to bring their problems to her. They are a real force for good in our schools and in our community. And so there's a lot of goodness that that we should harvest from the way our police department has conducted itself so far. But I also believe what Mr. Kizak said, that there's no department or township that's so perfect that they can't look inside and ask themselves what they could be doing better. So I completely agree with Mr. Tosti's idea to hold some implicit bias training in person when we can for the police department staff. I would love to attend it and open it to our residents if we can. I think Ms. Payne's suggestion to include the NAACP is a really important one, because I think we also shouldn't lose sight of the fact that the 5 of us elected representatives are all white, and we need to be listening to the people of color that lead this protest and lead this movement. And so I want to give us an opportunity to be listeners and not speakers at that session. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Ms. Corporal, do you have anything to add?
I just want to say I agree. I think our township does a really nice job. The police chief has always done a great job with involving the community and having support, but there's always room for improvement. And I agree with everything Amy said, that you know, I support our police officers, but that doesn't mean I don't support Black Lives Matter. And you know, I think that things are being more open now than ever before, and this is the time for us to jump on board and have these hard conversations, get everybody together so we feel like one community, not a divided community. And you know, just keep on going and have these conversations in these meetings, and have us be part of that, the township schools and leaders, Black leaders, and the police officers. And I think it's just going to make us stronger as a community. So I'm definitely all for it, and I'm excited about moving on with these endeavors.
Thank you, Ms. Corporal. And I'll just, if I can, just to sum up this conversation, we put out a couple of weeks ago a letter, an open letter to the Middletown community, and that was on behalf of the entire Board of Supervisors. And it's available on the township website if anybody wants to read it. But if I can, I just would like to summarize 2 of the basic principles that were at the heart of that letter. And the first was that we support Black Lives Matter, and to the protesters, we stand with you. But at the same time, to our police department, we stand with you too. And we thank you for putting your lives at risk to protect us, to keep our community safe, and to protect those that are exercising their right to protest. And I think that that succinctly really translates or clarifies the opinion or the feeling of this Board of Supervisors on this issue. So I thank all of you for weighing in on this topic, and I thank any residents who are also weighing in. I don't know if we have any comments at this time. No. Okay. All right. So we don't have any other public comments at this time. So at that, we will move on to the last agenda item, which is other business. Mr. Tosti.
Yeah, I'd like to thank the board again for having that conversation. It is a conversation that needs to be had, so I'm glad we had that. And I'm glad that we are out front in that too. Again, just like I told Ms. Strauss with the opening of the township, You haven't seen other townships talk about this, so I'm glad we had that conversation. And residents know that, yes, we do support Black Lives Matter, but we also support our police department. So I'm just thank the board for that. And then the other thing I would like to just mention, and I seen something, I haven't been getting on social media much lately, but I seen something on there about the mask. And with our township opening up, I know people are upset about wearing the mask around town and in stores and everything. But if you would just have the common courtesy for the residents here in our township, it would be much appreciated, because if you don't want to wear the mask, you might be saving somebody's life just by putting it on and not transmitting this disease. This COVID-19 has not gone away. It's still here, and you can see it in some of the states where it's starting to get worse. So do your part for the residents of this township, and just wear your mask when you're out in public. It will help stop the transmission of this disease until there's a vaccine. And I think we all want to get through this so that we can get back to some normalcy. And we can be sitting up here on this diocese having a meeting instead of doing it through Zoom. So that's the only thing I'd like to add.
Thank you, Mr. Tosti. Ms. Strauss.
Nothing further. Thank you all for having that respectful conversation. It's always a pleasure when we can find a way to move forward on a difficult topic.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss. Ms. Payne.
Nothing else.
Ms. Corporal.
Not tonight.
Mr. Esposito.
Nothing else.
Ms. Dealy-Cools.
It's very quick. I want to recognize the efforts of a huge group of township employees responding to the unrest. Our police department, fire and emergency management, and public works were working 7 days and nights, Sunday to Sunday. It was an incredible effort, and we had a strong showing of police force that deterred any significant incidents. And so a lot of credit goes to those officers, members of the fire and emergency management and public works, who were literally working around the clock for 7 days. So hats off to them for that work. Thank you.
Thank you. I have nothing further. So at this time, I will accept a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second.
We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you.